about 3.5 weeks away from the mega holiday called Shavuot. Why isn't this working? And this is one of those holidays where the average Jew doesn't really know how to celebrate. The average Jew will tell you they celebrate a holiday like Passover, they celebrate a holiday like Yom Kippur, but they miss out on some of these bigger holidays. And there's no question that Shavuot is a central part of Jewish thinking. The whole purpose of the Exodus, the whole purpose of us leaving Egypt was so that we can achieve some level of clarity, not just there goes my video again, not just of not just clarity of freedom. Remember that if you're going to get freedom, you always have to ask freedom to what? Freedom for the sake of freedom isn't very helpful. You have to ask yourself, where is this freedom taking you? How are you achieving freedom? And when we are thinking about this particular holiday, we have to remind ourselves, well, okay, the Jews leave Egypt. Okay, that happened about 17 days ago. And now there's this huge gap between this exodus of us leaving Egypt and us getting the Torah itself. And the question is, if the whole purpose of the exodus was the receiving of the Torah, right? Why such a huge gap? Why was it necessary to have all this time pass? Why wait for so long? What's the holiday called? The holiday is called Shavuot. Shavuot literally means weeks, right? It literally means weeks. And that's a weird holiday. What do you mean weeks? What is the celebration about? And why is it that so few people lack the basic understanding necessary to understand this? You'll find that this is one of those holidays that are really just celebrated by the more observant people, which is a shame, because I believe that this is the essence of what Judaism is. Judaism is not just a celebration of victories and freedoms. It's really a celebration of a mind. It's a celebration of the human being having the ability of making choices. And that is, I believe, what Shavuot is. So when we think of Shavuot, we think of the Torah itself. All right, it's the biblical account of Adam and Eve and Noah and the flood and the patriarchs and the matriarchs and Moses or Moshe, depending where you're coming from, right? It's the intricate system of laws, it's rituals, is the Torah a more global term, like the single most influential, most far-reaching spiritual force to ever, step foot on planet Earth? It maybe the Torah is a book of monotheistic ideas, the bedrock of values of morality, sanctity of life, chesed, chinuch, education. Shavuot is the festival where we celebrate the giving of the Torah. And the question we should be asking ourselves is, what does the Torah mean to us? Or what does the Torah mean to you? And I think in order to answer that question, we have to understand different kinds of issues. Why did God give us the Torah? Why would a creator of the universe have desired to bequeath his divine wisdom to mortal man? And I think if you stop for a moment and think of that question, why would an infinite God want to create me and then give me a book, right, with his wisdom inside of it? God gave us life so that we can manifest his presence even more so in a physical world. That is, I believe, what the function of the Torah itself. The Torah teaches us that the entire physical world was created to serve as a means for mankind's spiritual growth and the fulfillment of God's commandments. So I'm not interested in just the mundane ideas that Judaism, and the world has to offer, which is unfortunately all too often. Most people think the mundane things is what makes Judaism, that's what spirituality calls for. But the Torah tells us that if we embrace the material world, we're able to elevate it into a vehicle to attain sanctity. And that is what the Torah wants. How do we get there? It's simple. It's called studying Torah, limuda Torah, right? When you are learning the Torah and you are observing his commandments, you're able to develop a connection with God, which is the essence of spirituality. That is the core. The Torah then is the means to infuse the physical world, with everything godly in this world, which is what gives meaning and purpose to the very existence that you and I adore and share together. That is what we're trying to accomplish on Shavuot. So what is Shavuot? It's a holiday that commemorates something called Ma'amad Har Sinai. It's the day in which God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai to the Jewish people. Now, interestingly, the Torah itself describes Shavuot in the terms and in very different kinds of terms. It does not mention the giving of the Torah, which took place on that day. The Torah defines Shavuot as a holiday celebrating the completion of the counting of the Omer, the 7-week count from Pesach to Shavuot. And there's a very special sacrificial offering of 2 loaves of bread that's brought on Shavuot. The Torah also mentions that Shavuot is a holiday when we celebrate the harvest of the first fruits. So you find that in the Talmud that Shavuot is a day in which God judges the world and decrees how many trees will produce this in the coming year. Now, even though these themes may seem to be very separate, and some of them are, but I believe that they're all linked into this one major theme, primary theme of the giving of the Torah itself. So the Torah commands us to count 49 days, beginning from the 2nd day of Pesach to celebrate the holiday of Shavuot until the 50th day. By the way, the 50th day is never counted. God willing, next week we'll do a whole conversation on numbers and how they work. Okay, so on the holiday of Shavuot, the Torah tells us to bring 2 special love offerings. You'll see it in your tefillah. Those of you that go to synagogue, you'll read about it. And we'll say, "Usfartem lachem mecheret haShabbat miyom haviechem et haomer hatnufa sheva shavotot timimot tihiyena." You got to bring it 7 cold weeks. Sheva shavot tispar lach. Another pasuk, you should count 7 weeks. All these ideas are there. Now, the idea is that the festival is called by the Torah the festival of weeks, Shavuot, because it comes right after these 7 weeks of counting, right? But that's very nice. But how does that give me clarity? Nachmanides says that Shavuot is called Atzeret, Chag Atzeret, because it is the conclusion of a period of time that begins with Pesach, just as Shmini Atzeret comes to conclude the festival of Sukkot, right? Shavuot is also called the Chag Atzeret because it comes to close this whole holiday. So if someone's to ask you, how long is the longest holiday that Judaism has that it celebrates? The answer is 50 days. That we have something called a 50-day holiday called Shavuot. Just gonna have my coffee. I made a bracha earlier. I just need a sip. What a great gift. I mean, come on. Where would we be as human beings without like a good cup of Joe in the morning? All right. So, okay, fine. I'm alive now. Nachmanides tells us that Shavuot is linked with Pesach. That this whole period of time of the Omer begins with Pesach and concludes the Shavuot is the longest festival that we celebrate. Okay. Now, what is so significant of the completion of the 7 weeks of the Omer? Those of you that are counting, right? And how is that related to Matan Torah? And the answer is that 49 days of Omer are intended to link the festival, the Chag of Pesach to Shavuot. We want to connect, we want to join the miracles of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus, with the giving of the Torah. The days of the Omer are a countdown until Shavuot. That's what the Ramban says. The entire essence of the Jewish people is only the Torah, right? Heavens and the earth and the Jewish people were created for its sake, okay? And the reason why the Jews were redeemed from Mitzrayim is for the giving of the Torah itself. That is what we're trying to accomplish. Now, I want to give over a chidush, okay, to understand that why this counting, we're counting up to the Torah, and it's not just a sentimental, marking of passage of time until the goal, right? It is the building of the goal itself. Counting is work. Okay, counting means an accounting. Those of you that are accountants or like to count money, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, and the reason is the counting means accounting for and developing of each component of a process fully, responsibly, and in the correct sequence. Only when each detail is painstakingly created and assembled into the process can the goal be reached. So Sfirat HaOmer is this kind of accounting. The transcendence of Shavuot, Torah, is reached not by a single act which builds it, but by a deliberate, painstaking building of each of the 7 days of the 7 weeks, which leads to until we get it. That's what Shavuot is. So let's pause for a minute. Let's double click, okay? Because we just said a lot. Okay, so what is the Shavuot, and why is it given over to us in this way? You see, how many of us like to cram? I love cramming. No one wants to sit there and prepare for anything. You know, I'm 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 just being honest. Like, but in reality, imagine if you go back to some of the most beautiful days that you ever experienced in your life. For me, it was my wedding day. It was the birth of my children. I would do anything to go back so I could have the time to prepare myself for those moments in life. It's so easy to experience life in a way where you're just bumping into moments, never being able to ground yourself down so that you can actually revel, enjoy the nuances, the details of those moments. That is what this is. You think you could just walk into a holiday like Shavuot and it'll all make sense, it fits? No. The reason why so many people struggle with this unique holiday is because too much preparation, Rabbi. Okay, I get it. Passover, you got spring cleaning. I want to get rid of my chametz anyway. Fine. I understand that. But Shavuot, I got to spend a whole entire 7 weeks preparing for Torah. Well, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? Well, okay. It looks like this. You spend about 15 minutes a day thinking about your character traits. You spend 15 minutes taking a pen and paper out and writing down each one of the traits that are holding you back from achieving your greatness. And there's 7 of these primary traits. You have something called chesed, kindness, gevura, justice. You have something called tiferet, balance. You have something called hod, which is like splendor. You have netzach, which is infinite. You have malchut, which is kingship, and you have yesod, which is foundation. These 7 principles make up all of the primary character traits, and then there's combinations of the two. Because if you have any one, and you live in any one extreme, that's bad. So living a life of just chesed, sorry, bad. That's not good. How do I know that? Well, let's look at Abraham. Abraham had a midah called chesed. He mastered chesed. He was the master of chesed, and he gave chesed to everybody. And he had a kid called Ishmael. And Ishmael is the opposite of chesed, the chesed that goes bad, okay, where it's only about taking, and not about giving. Because even chesed needs boundaries. So you have someone like Yitzchak, who said, whoa, Dad, you went way too far. You raised me with chesed, but I see how bad chesed was, right? Because I have an older brother called Ishmael, and I see what happened to him. You missed the mark. You have to have something called gvura, boundaries. Boundaries is the way in which you raise your children. So what does Yitzchak do? That's his primary midah, his primary character trait. And he raises kids with midat of gvura. And he has 2 kids, Yaakov and Ishmael. And Yaakov's like, whoa, like, okay, Grandpa, you were right. And Dad, you were also right. And therefore, I'm going to create something called Tiferet. I'm going to create a world of chesed and gvura and join them together and create something called balance. Now, you may think, well, okay, the goal is to fuse chesed and gvura together, and that's it, you're good. Now you have the balance, and that's the goal. And the answer is no. If you live in a world of only balance, you know what happens? Something else called laziness. Right? When you live in a world of harmony and everything is perfect, you don't want to go anywhere. I'm good. It's perfect. I'm okay. I'm great. And therefore, each one of these traits, we could go through all of them at another time, they represent an extreme. Kindness is good, but it needs to be balanced with something called gvura. Tiferet is good, but it needs to be balanced with chesed and gvura, because you need, or actually nitzchiyut, which is eternity, the idea that you're going to be constantly building and creating and moving, but also pulling yourself back, right? That's what this is. This is the ultimate 7-week program of personal development. That's what this holiday is. Why? What is the Torah? Well, Rabbi, the Torah means hora'ah. It comes from the word hora'ah, which means instruction. Yeah, instructions to do what? What is the Torah instructing us? Of course, the Torah is an instruction manual to tell me about how to keep kosher, how to keep Shabbat, and how to be more moral. And the holiday, the Torah itself is about just like all kinds of religious obligations. And that's what Torah is. And if someone gave me that as an answer on a test, I'd say 0 wrong, 100% wrong. That is not what the Torah is. You completely missed the mark. That is not what Torah is. What is Torah? So let's go back for a second. God creates the world, okay? An infinite being, all-knowing, all-powerful. He creates everything that we have in front of us. The beautiful trees right now that are blooming. If you haven't gone out for a walk, shame on you. Go out and take a look at the trees. They're gorgeous right now. They're blooming. It's beautiful. Get some sun in right now. It's gorgeous outside. He creates a world. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's every single nuance of everything that I see outside my window is gorgeous, and he creates it for you to enjoy. You are living in the portrait of perfection. But I don't see that. So God creates the world with his infinite wisdom. He creates you. I'm here. Now what? Okay, well, how do I know there's a God? I'm not sure. Okay. I look at the world and I find design. And I find design, we find a designer, right? Like Budweiser. So you have a designer, and the designer creates a world for a reason, not just for the sake of let's just have fun, let's just throw out the world and have a world for the sake of a world. The world has a purpose, my friends. How do I know? Because I find design. Design equals purpose, intention. What is that purpose and intention? The purpose and intention is something called Torah itself, okay? Torah is why the whole world is here. So for example, if I create a world and I don't share the way to run the world, if I don't give over the details of what the aim, the purpose, the function of the planet is, the whole creation itself serves no purpose. It's useless. So here you have a holiday where God literally reveals himself. Imagine if we were there, we were in Egypt, and we literally see these 10 massive miracles, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's true. There's God. He's here. It's real. Okay. And then he says, okay, guys, it's true. I'm here, but the whole purpose wasn't just the freedom. The Charlton Heston version of the 10 Commandments, like the pivotal moment is the 10 Commandments itself, not just the Exodus, even though they don't spend much time in it. Right? The main focus of the movie is the Jews leaving Egypt. But if they were to recast the movie and remake the movie, the real focus, the focal point of that whole story is what happened during these 50 days leading up to Matan Torah itself. Why? Because this wasn't just a day of, here comes God again. They saw God again. They saw him more clearly at the splitting of the sea, actually. So what was the purpose and the function of the Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah itself? The function was to give over the instruction manual that allows you, my friends, to live a life of meaning, allows us to create a world of balance and perfection. That's the function of the Torah. That's it. If you want to understand why our ancestors fought so hard to preserve our belief, our faith, our customs, it's because they have known for the last 2,000 years, because that's how long we've been out of our homeland, right? When the Romans sent us away for 2,000 years, if you and I are sitting here right now having this conversation, it's because you come from a long line of winners, of Jews who fought really hard to preserve their identity. It wasn't because they were these ignorant people that didn't know any better. They could have easily have walked away at any moment, but they kept their faith, they kept their belief, they kept their customs because they understood that the world outside was lacking something. There's something missing from the world that we live in. There's something that's deeply wrong with the world that's out there. And that when we look deeper in, of course, I'm not saying Jews are perfect. We're far from perfect. We're working hopefully towards perfection. But when you find people that do Judaism right, wow, it's beautiful. There's harmony there. There's everything that everyone wants. Everyone wants the basic things. We want love. We want to have a family. We want to have children. You want to have a home. You want to have a community. You want to live in comfort. You can have all those things, but they're all interlinked to one another. I can't tell you how many times people tell me that, oh, yeah, I can never practice Judaism. It's too hard. It's going to take away my freedom. It's going to take away my ability to do all the things that I want to do, when they don't realize that the Judaism itself will actually give them everything that they want and more. But we look outward into the world. Oh, because the world will give it to me. They know better. It's more modern. And it's like this weird mind hack somehow, where we completely lose ourselves to the outside world. So what is Shavuot? My friends, if you've never celebrated a Shavuot, I'm inviting you for Shavuot, okay? Come to and celebrate a Shavuot. It's not going to be like you think. It's not going to be a seder where you pull out Haggadah and you're telling stories, right? That's not what the holiday is. The holiday could only make sense if you spent this time right now preparing for it. How do you prepare for the holiday? Well, have you asked yourself the most important question? What can I do to be better? What can I do to be greater? What are my values? What are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? How am I working on being a better version of myself? If you're not asking that question, you could come and celebrate Shavuot with me. You'll have great food, I promise you. My wife, best challah on planet Earth. Okay, and I know I'm biased. It's true, I am biased, but I've had lots of challahs, and I've yet to find one that rivals hers. But more importantly, she has kavanot. She's thinking about the people that are coming to my house, and she has your name in mind when she puts her fingers in that dough. So it's spiritual kneading, right? Spiritual dough. Okay, that happens every single week. Okay, now think about it for a moment. What would your summer look like if you spent the next 3.5 weeks, 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, just writing, 5 minutes a day? Everyone can give me 5 minutes a day. Write out the questions. What are my 5 greatest traits? What are my 5 worst traits? What am I doing to improve both? How are we growing, my friends? This is the summertime. Look outside. Don't you get it? Shavuot happens at a time of the year where the world begins to re-emerge from its darkness, where the world itself begins to bloom. You think it's an accident that this is tied into the harvest festival, right? It's not just the conclusion of the counting of the Omer. It's the beginning of the harvest festival. Chag HaKatzir, Bikurei Masecha. It's a time where we are bringing out the first fruits. But it's so easy to believe that the world around us, that's what it's about. That the world itself, the gashmiut of the world, the materialism of the world, that's the purpose. That I'm here to just to go out and be the farmer. I'm supposed to be the guy, the bricklayer. That's what I am. Or I'm the dentist or the doctor or the guy who's in in finance. But that's not what you are, right? You're much bigger than that. You're much more than the things that you do for your profession. Right? It's a day where everything comes together. Truth, right? Unlike all of the other holidays, Shavuot is not identified as a specific day in the calendar, right? But it's the 50th day after the Omer. We know that Pesach, it says, on the 14th day of the month. You have Rosh Hashanah on the first day of the month. It's the beginning on the second day of Pesach, when the Omer is brought. 49 days are counted, and the next day is the 50th Shavuot. There is no 50th. It just says you have to count 7 weeks, sometimes 7 whole. Strange. Why doesn't the Torah explicitly mention that the holiday of Shavuot is the anniversary of Ma'amad Har Sinai? If that is the significance of the day, why doesn't the Torah mention the fact itself? And why is the special offering of the 2 loaves designed to coincide with the date of the giving of Torah? Is there some kind of connection? So the Kli Yakar asks these questions. And he says that the reason that the Torah does not explicitly mention that this is the day of the giving of Torah is because God didn't want to limit the giving of the Torah to a single day. Because a person should feel that every single day of the year, it's as if he received the Torah from Mount Sinai on that day. It's brilliant. How do I keep this thing alive for you? By the way, this is, my friends, the foundational thoughts of how to build any kind of relationship. What would your marriage relationships look like if every day was your wedding day? Think about back, Izzy. Think back to that one day, right? Like, what would you be like if you could live in that moment, that clarity every single day, right? That love, that excitement, the uncertainty, the nervousness, all of that. You live in that world of inspiration, you could accomplish anything. There is no distraction. There is no nothing. There's nothing else. Everything else is just noise. So why doesn't the Torah tell us what day it is? Because I don't want to limit you. Every day that we celebrate life is a day where we can tap into the same inspiration of the Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah itself. The Torah should be anew for a person every single day. And if you're here, I know you're those kinds of people looking for that inspiration. The truth is that one does find something new in the Torah every single day, right? You're hearing a chidush every day, you're learning. Therefore, the Torah did not specify the day to give a hint that we need to reach for new understandings, new vistas of comprehension, so that we could go ahead and celebrate this thing anew every single day. That is the purpose of this time. How do I tap into this beautiful idea that that the Torah is a book of human perfection, of human excellence? How do I tap into that inspiration? Yeah, simply, you got to want it. You can't expect things to get better if you don't get off the couch and go out and do something. You can't expect the world to become a greater place. You can't expect your circumstances to change on their own just by praying. We don't believe in that. Remember when the Jews were standing there at the beach of the Yam Suf, and Moses starts praying, and God says, "Lama titzakalai, go do something. Get out of here. Don't come asking me. You can do it. The power is yours. Get up and go do something." My friends, this is the time of the year where forget about Pesach, okay, whatever. Forget about what was. All right. How do you inspire yourselves? Number one is you recognize that I have the power of living a life of meaning. But in order for me, that's right, the Schwartz is with you, within you, right, within you. Um, it's within you, and therefore the power that's there that this holiday represents is the power of pulling out that better self, that better part of who you are. The Mamad Har Sinai, we always say, you hear the website called Saw You at Sinai. That imagery of like all the souls that were all standing there at Mount Sinai, that's what we're tapping into on this unique day. Shavuot is a holiday where we stand together spiritually, hand in hand, expressing the best parts of who we are. And we understand that in order for us to bring out those best parts, we got to put in the effort, the work. We got to look deep inside of ourselves and say, oh my gosh, I have this amazing vision of who and what I can be and what I ought to be, what I need to accomplish, what I can be. And I don't look back. And I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight, and I keep fighting until I make that version of me a reality. It doesn't matter how much time has passed. That's what we call the Yetzer Hara. He tells you, oh, it's too late for you. The ship has sailed. It's too late. It's too late. You made mistakes. You can never change. I say BS. Okay. That's bullschnitzel. You can accomplish anything you set your mind to at any point, any time in your lives. And Shavuot is a reminder that every single day, every single moment is a unique opportunity to become something bigger and better. God willing, next week we're going to finish off part 2 of this conversation. I hope that you are able to be mindful of the fact that if you're here and you're living, your heart is beating and the sun is shining, even when it's not shining. God loves you infinitely more than you could possibly imagine. Leave your pain behind, embrace your future, and let's bring down the Torah anew again. Have an amazing day. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much for coming in. Bye, everybody.